All right, we're back with Sam.
Hello.
That was quick.
Yeah. It just felt like 2 weeks ago that we did our first recording, and this is our second one.
Yeah.
And I feel like I am part of it should be like Phil, Spiro, and Sam podcast.
Maybe one day you can buy in.
If you keep buying.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah,
I better buy in early,
expensive.
right?
Yeah, come on. Look, we got a plant now.
Hey, I think it's actually borrowed. It's not yours.
Borrowed plant. Yeah, it's not
borrowed,
ours. Same with that thing. Kind of nice though.
I really like it. I don't know if is it a Greek vibe or is it a Chinese vibe? Because there's a lot of China that looks like this as well, but it does look very Greek.
The Chinese probably stole it from the Greeks.
No.
Oh,
let's not start this conversation.
This is going to be a podcast of race. Okay, we'll avoid that topic. So yeah, thanks for coming back on. Such short notice. Phil's still away, so
yeah,
duo podcast right now. It's about 3 weeks, almost 3 weeks into the new year. So things are sort of in place. We can kind of look back a little bit now. But I know there was one YouTube comment that you received.
Yeah. So I personally think this year is going to be the year for new home buyers. I legit think that, and I made a YouTube video about it on our Elevate channel, talking about house hacking and why it makes a lot of sense this year. And I got some interesting feedback, and I definitely appreciate all types of feedback. I'm the type of person who takes criticism really well. I use it to improve myself. But I think this would be a good podcast for us just to talk more about the pros and cons of house hacking. And since you might be in a stage in life where house hacking might make sense, and for me and a lot of the people on our team, we've actually started with house hacking. It's a proven way for us to personally grow our portfolio, and that's why we're such strong believers in it. And I mean, just keep in mind that house hacking is not a forever thing. It's just to help you get your foot in the door with your first property, and because you're saving a lot of money with housing expenses, and you're not front loading your debt with your first property, and that's why you can get to your second property faster and third property, etc. And so we're strong believers in it. But I'll read the comment. So this is in response to the video that is titled 2023 is the year for first-time home buyers in Toronto from Elevate Realty. So Rick commented and said, if the only way to afford to buy a middling semi-detached home in 2023 is to move into its basement and rent out the main and upper floors, many folks will take a pass. This video doesn't really speak to the fact that finding a home with a ready-to-move into basement apartment always sells at a substantial premium to its empty basement counterparts. You will pay more, your down payment will be higher, and your mortgage payment will be higher. Someone who is struggling to get into the housing market doesn't usually have an extra $50K to $75K kicking around for a basic basement reno.
Boom. Rick. Spit and fire.
No, I mean, I respect it. Like, there's a lot of good points out in this comment, and we can kind of hash it all out, talk about the pros and cons of house hacking. And we personally talked about it quite a lot as well. And, there's certain things that are not as glamorous, and there's obviously there's benefits from the financial standpoint as well. So, let's talk about it. Yeah.
And maybe one time, we do have a team member right now. I won't say who, if they want to talk about their current house hacking experience, they can at a different point, but we won't name names just because, more personal. But like you said,
let them say it if they want to.
Exactly. Let them say it if they want to. But like you said, team members have house hacked in the past. If you look historically in the city of Toronto, many people have house hacked. That's how a lot of new immigrants came into this country in the 60s, 70s with no money in their pockets, roomed with roommates, saved up money. Back then, it was a lot different than now. They were making a lot less, but a lot different than now. They would save up, buy a house, rent out the first, second floors or whatever it was, and slowly built their way up. It's actually not a new concept. So the fact that people are thinking that maybe now that's the only way, it is a little bit different these days. Things are much more expensive, and for people just getting into the market, it is a little bit more difficult, but borrowing power is a lot higher than it was at one point as well. Does it cancel out no, it's definitely more difficult to purchase now. That I think.
No, yeah, it's definitely more difficult.
more
And
difficult.
back then, I think I house hacked like 15 years ago. That's when I started. And back then, property prices were cheaper, rents were decent. So yeah, I was definitely living rent free by living in one of the 3 units on a property. And actually, gaining extra cash flow on top of that. So nowadays, you can't do that. You might be negative, I don't know, like maybe $600, $1,000.
It depends on
what on like how you want to
subjective.
live in that house. But it's definitely still a lot cheaper than renting a place on your own. And the bigger difference is that you're actually owning real estate. So, the money that you put out every month, part of it goes towards equity gain. So in your mortgage payment, part of it is your principal pay down. So every, half of it might go towards owning more of the property each month. And you also benefit from long-term appreciation. Of course, in the short, real estate should always be a long-term decision, a long-term investment. So in the short term, yes, like the market might go like that. But then if you look, 20 years out, 30 years out, real estate does go up in value over time. And the third thing is leverage. If you invest in stocks, it's a little bit risky. If you can definitely leverage with stocks, but it's definitely riskier, and you might get margin calls, which means if you lose too much money, then the banks will tell you to top up your position so that they're not put in a very risky situation. But with real estate, you don't really get those mortgage calls as much, and so you get the cheapest rates for interest rate for borrowing, and then you are able to use other people's money, borrowed money, to make more money, and you end up being in a very good position in terms of your return on investment for real estate. So, lots of advantages there.
Now, do you think these days that is as easy to do as it was 15, 20, 40 years ago?
No, I don't think it's as easy. Real estate prices have gone up a lot more. And if you look at the income growth, I think I was looking at statistics, I was seeing that real estate prices are growing 8 times faster than income growth. So yeah, it's definitely a lot easier back then to afford to buy real estate, to do any of this. But if you look more in the shorter term, things have gotten easier this year. So the biggest barrier to home ownership in Canada, there was an independent survey that did this. They said it's the capital. It's not the monthly. The second biggest thing is affording the monthly payments, but the biggest thing is getting enough capital to actually buy real estate. And last year, average real estate prices were well over $1 million. So you can't actually get. There's different options. Like if you can get an insured mortgage and pay a lower down payment as long as your purchase price is under $1 million. But it wasn't last year, and that was the big thing. But now this year, because starter home prices have gone down 25%, 30%, now that price has dropped back down to below $1 million. And because of that, it actually opens up that reduces that barrier to entry. So instead of needing 20% down on $1 million plus home, you'd need over $200,000 to get in. But now you can actually put 7.5% down. So you only need $75,000 plus closing costs to get in. So that's the big difference for this year. And that's why I think it's actually going to be a lot easier for first time home buyers this year.
Let's jump into my scenario, because I think we can probably use that to explain a lot, and people in my scenario what they're probably thinking and what I'm thinking. So
for sure.
A couple years back, I bought a condo. That's what I could afford at the time. So it was a little bit. It was just under the amount that an entry level home or a house hacking home with 2 or 3 units would be at. My theory at the time, which I was actually proven correct, was that I thought the market would explode and go really high starting the new year, right before I bought. So I purchased it at a level, and within about 4 or 5 months, I earned about $150,000 onto my initial purchase price. Things changed. It went back down.
To market. Yeah.
So now it's actually evened out over the course of the 2 years, which is, again, fine. I'm pretty much, I'm a little bit above where I was before. Actually, if you look at it now, it's probably, historically speaking, I'm probably on the same pace, which is good. for now. Who knows what happens in another 6 months? But for now, I'm okay. My theory behind that was just get a property, get in the game, and then figure it out from there. I'd rather own something than nothing. And it worked at that time. Now, at where I am now, I'm thinking maybe it's time to house hack because it opens up a lot more potential for me, a lot more savings in the short and medium term, which would help me exponentially grow a little bit quicker. It would also put a little bit less stress on me as you know, an individual owning a property on my own. It is a big payment, and living. It's not free. You know, nowadays it's going to be like I'm spending. If I want to live in a basement, maybe depending if it's 3 units, I'll be forking out probably $500 to $1,000 a month, which is very low. It's way lower than renting anything. Still, you know, practically free. It's not actually free, but very, very low. If it was 2 units, I'd still be spending a considerable amount. If I wanted to live, let's say, in a 3 unit on the upper level, second floor, let's say it's a nice big unit, I'll be spending around $2,000 and maybe a little bit more, which is still very good for that unit. If you were going to rent it out, it'd be $3,000. Or if you were going to own a property, your mortgage on a property like that would be, you know, $4,000 or $5,000. So it's actually relatively good and you know, affordable relative to what else is out there. So my theory now is I can keep what I have right now and live very comfortably. I mean, condos are amazing to live in. I will preach that all the time.
Yeah, for sure.
I
you
do
get
not
all the amenities.
It's
like
the right.
It's right.
You know,
type of neighbors.
Everything is just, you know, I drive home, go into my underground parking spot, I take the elevator upstairs, go into my apartment. It's exactly how I left it. Not that homes change, but I don't have to worry about, oh my God, it's a storm. What's going to happen? No, it doesn't even matter. I don't even know when it's storming because I'm in my condo. It's so nice, so laid back, so stress-free. Like you said, amenities are amazing. Pool, sauna, gym, anything you really want. You do pay for that in your maintenance fees, but you know, the upkeep of it's relatively worth it. I mean, there's some that are pretty high, but in my opinion, it's worth it. I really enjoy living in a condo, and giving that up is going to be very tough for me because I've kind of created this little life for myself that's like really nice. I don't want to give it up, but at the same time, if I'm saving, let's say $1,000 or $1,500 a month, and I can go into living in a bigger unit in a house hacking scenario, so it'd be much larger. In this situation, what I've sort of run the numbers on one particular house, it would be 1,100 square feet. So double the square footage.
Bigger than your condo.
Double. Not just bigger. Double.
Oh, your condo's that? I thought it was a 1 plus 10. Okay.
It's a 1 plus 10, but it's like 650 to 700 square feet. So, you know, almost double. We'll call it double because it's almost 1,200 square feet, I believe. But anyways, let's just say double for argument's sake.
Okay.
And my payment will be halved of what I'm paying now. So for the space, I mean, it's kind of a no-brainer when you put it in that perspective. Yeah. I mean, why would I spend double the amount on something that's half the size? Even though the house hacking scenario is actually the apartment's very nice. It's not bare bones. That's why I'm spending, $2,000 a month on it or whatever it would be. It's a little bit more expensive. I could do a house hack and spend much less, which is probably the smarter way of doing it. But at the same time, you got to enjoy where you live, I think. So,
but so I would, especially since you're still young in life, I would probably, personally, I would sacrifice, a couple of years just so that you can have the right base for growth. And, if you house hack, then you can save more money. But the other thing is that you would be able to qualify for new mortgages a lot quicker. And that's something that you need to keep in mind. If you have a condo that's your own, then you're actually front loading a lot more debt. And with the way that stress tests are going to change, probably in Q3 of this year, it's going to be even harder for you to qualify for your next rental property, if you're sitting on a condo that is your own and you're not generating any rental income. But if you house hack, you have a big portion of the house that's also generating you income. So if you get a mortgage guy to run numbers, then you can see that it'll be a lot easier for you to get your next property if you actually house hack. So it really depends on your long-term goals, like savings and also growth. If people are satisfied with only, with one property, then choose whatever you want. But if you're looking to grow a real estate portfolio, then there's steps and ways to do it to make it more like a better route to go, basically.
Fair enough. I know there's things that you should do, and there's a lifestyle that you sort of want to live. Typically, what you do see, I would say the average real estate investor who does house hack, typically these days, maybe not 10, 15 years ago, these days, the pattern that we see, and I spoke to Ken about this, who was on the podcast last episode. What he's finding is people will buy a condo when they're young. That's their max affordability is a condo. Let's say that, $600,000 around that area purchase price. They'll live in it for a few years. It'll appreciate a little bit. Then they'll sell the condo once either their earnings go up or savings go up, and the condo appreciates. So it's like a threefold factor there. You're making, maybe you get a promotion. So now instead of making, $70K, you're making $90K or whatever it is. So now you can borrow a little bit more. Now maybe you also have a partner that you're moving. There's a bunch of
if you
things
double
that
your income, then yes, exactly.
Double your income. It's much easier. Then what will happen after a few years of owning that condo is you'll sell the condo, move into a house hacking scenario where now your payments go way, way lower. You get, similar amount of space, let's say. You live in that for a couple of years, and now your affordability is much better, and your qualification for the next purchases are much higher, and then you can start growing from there. And then you purchase, your next property, which you move into fully, and you rent out that last unit. And now that property turns into a rental property, and now you have a rental property and an end user property that you maybe also house hack and rent out the basement. So it kind of grows from there. That's the biggest pro of house hacking. It's the pro that for a lot of real estate investors outweighs any potential con that could pop up. Now, there are also cons of it as well, for sure. And there's unavoidable ones. The first one that everybody I speak to, because everybody around, my age, my friend group, they all have the same thought is, I'm going to have to be living in one of my rental units with tenants below me or above me. It's something that's unavoidable in this situation. So you're going to have to always have face-to-face contact with your tenants every single day.
So you really have to like your tenants.
So you have to really like your tenants. You have to be extra cautious when renting out those units, because you don't want to put somebody that's going to, cause issues, or vice versa. You cause issues to them, right? If it's like, let's say you're living upstairs and you're a 25-year-old and you are having friends over at 1 a.m. and you live on the second floor, and on the main floor is a 70-year-old lady that's sleeping at 9 a.m. It's probably not gonna be the best scenario, and you're gonna have to deal with that all the time. So the tenants is the one huge one that always pops out. The second one is for sure it's the noise between the units. There are multifamily homes that are purpose built, so like legal triplexes and duplexes that were actually built for that, multifamily homes. The sound doesn't travel as much in those. You can get away with them, but with 50, 70, 100-year-old homes
that were built to be single family, then it's very, very hard. And I actually had, when I had my first kid, we still had a basement tenant for the first, I would say like maybe half a year. And the noise issue, it wasn't my tenants making the noise. It was definitely my kid making the noise. And it's just, I didn't want to do that to my tenants. So, and we needed that extra space anyway. So we ended up taking back the basement, and,
I'm sure they were happy to leave at that point.
They were very happy to leave. It's really a win-win, I guess, for that in that situation. But yeah, so that's why like house hacking is not forever. It's only for that initial fast growth stage in life where you don't have a family yet. You don't mind living in that kind of situation for maybe a couple of years. And then once you gain enough equity, once you gain, get a bigger salary, then you can live in something nicer. So it's just sacrificing something in the beginning for bigger rewards in the future.
Did you ever have any issues with tenants?
Yeah.
Yeah, living in the same house?
Yeah. It's usually noise or conflicting views in terms of how things are done. But yeah, let's not talk about it.
Yeah. So this is the thing, right? It's really tough for, especially going from a condo to go into that scenario where condos is like, do I hear my neighbors maybe once in a while? Like, there's a baby that cries that's a unit over, but barely I can hear it. It doesn't bother me at all. Where I know for a fact that, especially if it's forced air, if there's forced air, you can hear everything. If you're by a vent and somebody else is by a vent below you, you can hear the whole like conversation practically. It's very easy. It's just a vent. Like there's nothing really blocking it.
Yeah.
So it does take a little bit of sacrifice as a homeowner. But, to put it in perspective, people who are renting out those units to live with that every single day, you can find units that are better equipped to deal with the noise and the tenant issues. Maybe there's more parking spaces, so you don't have to run into that. Maybe, the type of unit is geared towards a certain type of tenant that will match up very well with your lifestyle, right? Maybe you're not going to get mix of ages, and you're going to get people who are around your age or have similar lifestyles.
You are the landlord. You have the option to choose who you want to live with, right?
Sort of.
Sort of. Yeah, I think so. I mean, as opposed to just renting a condo or being a regular renter. That's
a good point. That's a good counter argument actually to it, where in a condo, I have no say at all who's living beside me. So that baby that cries every night, kind of tough shit on my end. I have to deal with it. If I hear my other neighbor partying until 2 a.m. on a Tuesday, which, has happened a couple times, it doesn't bother me, but you can hear it once in a while. I have no control over that. Whereas, when you are putting a tenant into a unit and they've applied and you've seen their application, you've seen their, you kind of, you know who they are, you've talked to them, you get a better sense of, okay, this person's not going to probably keep me up all night, and vice versa. I'm not going to keep them up all night when I'm, taking calls at 11:30 or doing whatever it is, right? If I do want to have anybody over, it's not going to be a big issue. So there is a little bit more planning that I think goes into house hacking. But would you say the pros outweigh the cons?
Yeah, that's why I did it, and that's why I preach it. Definitely. I don't know what to say. I mean, there's so many advantages, right? So you own a bigger property, you get bigger appreciation, you still get some people ask, oh, does it make more sense for me to rent a place and then just put all the money in a separate investment property? So, I mean, obviously there's the advantage where you're not living with your tenants, but the other advantage of house hacking is that you gain capital gains tax savings from the portion of the home that you live in. So that's another big thing that you won't get from renting and then buying an investment property completely.
Would you say, I'm happy you brought that up, would you say that scenario is still better than living in a property without house hacking? Meaning you're the only occupant.
You're the only occupant.
So buying, let's put it this way. Scenario A is you buy a property and you live in it, and you're paying $4,000, whatever it is, $4,000 a month, let's say, and but you own it, but whatever. Scenario B would be you buy that property, you rent it out fully and break even or cash flow slightly positive, and you rent out a place for $2,000 or $2,500, whatever it is. So which option would you?
Wait, so is there a third option? I thought your third option is you own that house completely and you live in it.
That was option A.
Oh, option A. Okay, yeah. So, I mean, eventually, I think everyone is going to get to option A.
Well, that's the goal.
And you're going to get to option A faster if you house hack, right? So, it's in terms of returns, it's always better house hacking because you get rental income and you get appreciation and you get some capital gains exemptions. If you own your own house, then you do get appreciation. You lose out on rental income. So from a returns perspective, it's less, even though you get that capital gains exemption and your holding costs are much higher. But eventually you would probably want to be in that position. It's just a better standard of living. And if you have a growing family, you just need more space.
So house hacking versus renting a property or buying an investment property that you rent out fully and renting something else, what would you choose in that scenario?
House hacking first.
House hacking. Yeah. So house hacking is always first.
Start with house hacking.
Second would be
and then you would
investment
and then
rental.
and then you would probably buy a rental property and then take up more of your house hacked home and eventually that whole house would be yours, and then you'd grow and then you would have like a bigger portfolio of investments, so that it kind of balances out. And then eventually, if your investment portfolio gets big enough, then you can probably upsize into something nicer. So you really want to balance the real estate that you're sitting on your own versus the portfolio that's completely investment. As long as those two kind of balance out and your debt servicing ratios look good, then it gives a reason for you to upgrade.
I've seen a couple headlines this year that says it's the year of the first-time home buyer.
Oh, I think I wrote that. That was my video.
There's been multiple.
Oh yeah,
There's
yeah.
been it's been in
okay.
articles now, and I hear other realtors talking about it on social media.
Yeah.
Why do you think that is?
Like I said, because it's easier to qualify, easier to get that down payment, because home prices are under $1 million. So you don't need 20% down payment. You only need 7.5% down payment. That's a huge difference. $75K versus $200K. Like, yeah.
It's night and day.
Night and day.
Okay. So what's one thing you want to say to Rick then to kind of pull this all together? What do you want to respond to Rick's really good, really positive comment on your YouTube channel, because this is exactly what you want when you put some out content like this.
You want people to watch it, and then this engagement. Is it. So, yes. Well, I mean, I did respond to the thread. I think someone else wrote another comment, but basically, house hacking is temporary. Like, I understand that living in a basement or living with tenants isn't the ideal situation, but it will facilitate you to have faster growth and scale better. And if the ultimate goal is for growth and to build up your real estate portfolio or to live nicer at the end, then house hacking is the way to go. You sacrifice a little bit in the beginning for bigger, greater rewards at the end. Yeah.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Sam, thanks for coming on again.
Thank
really
you.
Appreciate it. Next time, I'm excited. Who knows what we're going to talk about?
Yeah, maybe we can talk about mortgage rules, because those are changing. And it's going to get tougher for real estate investors.
Oof.
Dun, dun, dun.
I don't know which button it is, but I would have pressed it. Is there anything else you want to end on?
No, I mean, that's it, I guess. See you guys next time.
Yeah, we'll see you next time. Phil, I miss you. Come back.
We miss
Come
you,
on.
Phil. Bye.
Thanks, guys.